The following broadcast is a presentation of Mount Zion Media Ministry.
Word today from the book of Matthew, chapter 16, Matthew 16, and it's a passage that most of you who are part of the church have heard before as I read it, but I want to read it and ask you to pay attention. Don't skip out on me because you are familiar with it. Matthew 16, beginning at verse 13. When Jesus came unto the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, Whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? And they said, Some say thou art John the Baptist, some say Elias, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. He said unto them, But whom say ye that I am? And Simon Peter answered and said, Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered and said unto him, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say unto you, that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And from those verses, I want to talk today from this subject. There's more to us than meets the eye. There's more to us than meets the eye. And let me say that I am introducing to you today in this message a sermon series that we will be on for the next 3 weeks as we prepare to come back for our live services. There's more to us than meets the eye. Everybody anywhere in the world would have to agree that COVID-19 was a major disruption for our life. I don't care whether it's your personal, professional life, whatever pocket or corner of life you examine, COVID-19 was a major disruption. It disrupted our family lives in ways that we couldn't have even imagined 4 months ago. Families have gone through things, and all of us have gone through death, for example, but not death in the way that COVID-19 brought us into the realm of death. In the past, we've been able to comfort one another, to be with our loved ones during their illnesses and transition, and even in the time of transition, those of us who are part of the church, those of us who have family and friends, we have come to the side of our friends to help them grieve, to help them walk through the valley in the shadow of death. Well, COVID-19 disrupted that. And we lost the capacity to do that. Our economy has been disrupted. And there are those that are predicting a recession or depression, just gloom and doom because of that disruption. Our lifestyle, couldn't go to the mall, couldn't go to the restaurant, couldn't go to the movies, couldn't go to the gym, you name it, couldn't do it because there was a disruption. Couldn't go to the bank. And listen, did you ever think that something would come and disrupt the church? That there would come a time when we couldn't even gather here in America in worship service? Maybe some of us thought maybe the government would go to the extreme and try to interfere with our worship, or some fringe group would come against the church, some other religion would come against the church, and so we are fighting these supposedly enemies. But lo and behold, the enemy who came was not another religion, not the government, but it was a virus that you couldn't touch him, you couldn't see him, you couldn't run, jump on him, and throw him down. But yet we have to agree that even in the church we experienced a major disruption. Now listen to me. What came out of the disruption in every part of life is people who profess to know what the outcome is going to be. And you can hear it as it relates to families, you can hear it as it relates to the economy and other segments of the business. But here is what I want to focus on today. There are those who believe that the disruption that the church has experienced is so major that the church will never recover. They're predicting that the church as we know it may never be again, that the church doors will close and never reopen because for various reasons we won't be able to recover. And then there are others on the other extreme that are saying that after this there's going to be a great revival. And people are going to be coming back to church in groves like they've never done before. Well, I have to be honest, I don't know what the outcome will be. And then there are those who predict that financially the church will be ruined. And as a result of the finances, the lack of income will be doomed. I don't buy that. Here's the other thing I want to say. There are also, as a result of these predictions, people who are trying to tell us what to do as the church in order to come back and be strong again or to go away and disappear, and the people will find something else to replace the church. My email is inundated every day with all of these opportunists who are saying to me things like, we've got this new plan to bring your members back. We've got this new plan to build on the members you picked up in social media. We've got plans to grow your income. We've got plans to expand ministry. There are opportunities. They got all these ideas. And I just hit the delete button. And here is why. Because most of the folk, these opportunists, our government, and all of these folk who are trying to tell us what we need to do, they are not qualified to tell us. Because when they look at us, they think they understand us. But my message today to them, and especially to the church, and especially that part of the church that's concerned about the future of the church, that there's more to us than what you can see with the eye. There's more to us than buildings. There's more to us than programming. There's more to us than this preacher that you see in flesh and blood and choirs and ushers and the other ministries and the people that you see. There's more to us than you can see with the natural eye. I'm simply trying to tell you, you can't diagnose us because you don't understand us. You can't give us a prognosis about our future because you don't know us. You don't know us like that. You don't understand us like that. Here is what I would suggest that your position be if I were you. And then I'm going to Matthew 16. There was another disruption with God's people called Babylonian captivity. When God allowed them to be captured by the Babylonians through war and to be removed from their land and taken to a strange land. In fact, they were in that land so long that they forgot what worship was like, and even felt like because of where they were, because they were not in their temple, their traditional place of worship, they didn't even know whether or not they could still worship God. And the evidence of that is in the book of Psalms when they were asked by their captors, hey, we heard about those songs y'all used to sing. Will you sing us one of the songs of Zion? And the response came back, how can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? The disruption had caused them to even believe that because of their relocation away from the temple, they had lost the capacity to worship the Lord because of place. But God is bigger than place and space. But here it is. Here's what I want to tell you. So God had this prophet named Ezekiel. And when God was getting ready to bring Israel back home and restore them to their proper place, he took Ezekiel out in a vision and he asked him, Ezekiel, I've set you down in the midst of a valley of dry bones. Look, they're dry. There's no flesh, no muscle, no tenderness, nothing, just dry bones. Look at them, been bleached by the sun. Look, Ezekiel, these bones are the bones of people, but they're dislocated, disconnected. Look, Ezekiel, there's a skull over there. And all you see is a skull. There are legs over there. There's the breast over there. There's the back over there. There's a hip over there. Just littered, Ezekiel, there's a toe, there's a foot. All these dry bones scattered, disconnected, disrupted. Ezekiel, can these bones live? Listen to what this prophet did, and you'll be smart to do the same thing. The prophet Ezekiel, the man of God that's anointed to speak for God, he leaned back and gave the best possible answer in the world. He said, Lord, I don't know, but thou knowest. God said to Ezekiel, in essence, you said it right. And then God went on to demonstrate to him that the bones would live. And all I'm trying to say to you is none of us are qualified to say whether or not the bones will live, because it's not ours to make them live. It's God's. And he doesn't just share his plans with anybody. Come on, go to this text and let me just unfold this for you. Jesus now is into his ministry. He has been here for approaching 3 years now, and he's been demonstrating to the people in this community that where his ministry, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, all of those places where he traveled, Galilee, Nazareth, he's been demonstrating to them who he was. He even has the disciples, and he's had them closer to him than the general population to demonstrate who he was, to try to help them understand him. But the text I read shares with us something about people and our ability and inability to understand who the Lord is. And in understanding this text, we will understand why people don't understand the church, and why there's more to us than meet the eye. So here we go. It's important that you look at verse 13, chapter 16, and listen at the question. When he got to the coast Caesarea Philippi, this is the question. Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? It's real important that you pay attention to the way Jesus identifies himself. Look at it. He didn't say, who do men say I, the son of Joseph, am? Who do men say I, the son of Mary, am? Who do men say I, the descendant of David, am? No, he goes to his messianic title. He identifies himself as Messiah. This Son of Man is a title, it's a title of his divinity. And so he says, who do men, do they understand that I'm Messiah? Do they understand that I am God? Do they get it? Do they get it? And you know what? Look at what follows. In verse 14, apparently these disciples, these 12 and whoever else was with them, had their pulse on what was happening in the community. And so in verse 14 it says, well, folk got a lot of opinions about you. Some say you John the Baptist. And that's interesting because John had been beheaded. So they're believing in reincarnation, that Jesus has been reincarnated, and now he's John the Baptist the second time around. Some say that thou art Elias or Elijah. And then again, that's a prophet from at least 500-600 years back. And now they're saying that once again, you are this prophet Elijah that has come back. Then you may be Jeremiah. Again, going back into the history, trying to define Jesus, trying to put him in some kind of box for them to understand him, and to say that he's Elijah, to say that he's Jeremiah, that is a good thing. That's a good name. But let me tell you something. As good as Elijah's name is, Jeremiah's name is, John the Baptist's name, it's too low for him. But here's what it points to. All of this time, all of this up close, all of these conversations, the scholars didn't understand him. The people on the street didn't understand him. And then some of them said, you just one of the prophets. They don't give a name to you, but they know there's something different about you, and you're a prophet. Brothers and sisters, as much as he said about who he was, as much as he said about his father, his life, his ministry, as much as he did to authenticate who he was, in spite of what the Father said at his baptism, as John dipped him in the water, this is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased, they didn't get it. But come close to me, because I don't want you to look at them in a negative way. Here is why they didn't get it. Because what and who Jesus was more than what met their eyes. And that's a way of saying there's more to him than what you see. And if you're trying to understand him, sight, perception, intellectually, take in the information that you have to study him, to come to some conclusion about him, you will not come to the correct conclusion. Because to know him cannot be discerned intellectually. You cannot go into the library and read and study. You can't go to the seminary. You can't go to a class and study about him and know him. You will learn about him, but you will never know him for who he is. Because it's something that cannot be discerned intellectually. It cannot be discerned experientially, because the disciples had been with him. They had experienced the miracles, experienced his teachings, experienced what it was to walk with him and talk with him. But experience alone won't lead you to the point you know him. You will know about him. You would know about his habits. You would see what he do, but you won't know who he is, because there's more to him than meets the eye that can't be understood from a human perspective. Can't do it. Pastor Simmons, how do you know that? Because it's right there in the text. Verse 15. So after he moves from the answer about the people in the community, the scholars, the brothers on the corner, the sisters in the beauty parlor, the brothers in the barbershop, all these prognosticators, the scientists, the government leaders, the religious leaders who think they know him and know about him. After they are proven wrong, then he asks the 12, but who do you say I am? You got some intellectual knowledge, you got some experience, but who do you say that I am? 11 of them did not open their mouths, because even though they had been with him, they didn't know him, because there was more to him than met the eye. And then our friend Peter speaks up, and he shares with us a revelation about Jesus Christ. Stick a pin in that word revelation. Verse 16, and Simon Peter answered and said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. There it is. He identified him as Messiah. Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? His title. And then he comes back. Peter comes back and said, thou art that definite article, T-H-E, the Christ. There's not another. There were none before you, there will be none after you. You are the Christ. You are the anointed one. You are the Messiah. You are the Son of the living God. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Folk didn't recognize that. They thought he was Mary's baby. But Peter here says, thou art the Son, not of a dead God, but a living God. You are Jehovah's Son. And at the same time, you are God yourself. You are the Christ. Peter saw what couldn't be seen with the eyes. Was it because Peter was smart? Was it because? No, it was because Peter got some revelation. Verse 17, look at the revelation. And Jesus answered and said unto him, blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto you, but my Father in heaven. Don't miss that. He says, Simon, you are blessed based on your revelation. Here it is, flesh and blood, humankind, mankind. No human being, Simon, son of Jonah, could have revealed that to you. Listen, any person who is flesh and blood, any information that is produced by people who are made up of flesh and blood cannot clearly help you understand who God is and what God is able to do. He says to him, my Father, you said I am the Son of the living God. Well, my Father revealed to you who I am. And the only person who could give you that revelation is my Father in heaven. Jesus said on one occasion, no man comes to me except my Father draw them. And so, brothers and sisters, I'm trying to tell you, since there's more to him than meet the eye, the answer to how is it then that you get to know all about him is through divine revelation. Somebody out there say divine revelation. And so we have to seek God for divine revelation. Listen, church, we are not looking for revelation about the future of the church, about the current stability of the church from flesh and blood. They cannot tell us. I will not listen to flesh and blood about what flesh and blood don't understand. But we will listen to divine revelation about God's church. We will take information, sift it before the Father, and allow him to share with us what it is we do. Let me show you something that gives me joy and hope in this divine revelation that Peter got. So Peter was blessed with this divine revelation from the Father about who Christ was. And keep that in mind now. He's the Christ, Son of God. He's God. And listen at what he says next. He's going to use a word that he's not used during his entire ministry. And even if you go back through the Bible, through the Old Testament, you won't find this word. You hear Jesus using it in this context for the first time. And I want you to read it with me. Verse 18, and I say unto you, thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Two things in there. There was this revelation to Peter about the identity of Christ that the Father gave him. And now Jesus gives us a revelation from the Father, first about the foundation of the church. Listen, thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. Now some people got this thing twisted and thought that because Jesus renamed Simon, son of Bar-Jonah, Peter, which means a small rock, a pebble, that he was talking about building the church on him. But God wouldn't build his church on a pebble. But Jesus Christ, the rock of ages, that rock that brings stability to the church. He is the rock. He is the foundation. Paul admonished us that no man can lay any other foundation than the one that had already been laid, and that foundation is Jesus Christ. And so Jesus Christ himself is the foundation of the church. And listen, he says, in building this foundation and building this church, I will build my church. Good gracious alive. My church. Let me see if I can break this down. You see, he had to say my church because, again, first time the word church is used. That word church is a Greek word ekklesia. And what it means is called out ones. So he uses that word ekklesia, and he has to put my beside it because there were other leaders and other entities that had ecclesias as well. There were people who had been called out to be a part of them. And so what Jesus is saying, there are other folk who've called people out of the world to be a part of them, to be a part of their kingdom, to be a part of their whatever it was. But now, in the earth, I am calling me some people out. And with those people, I will build my church. My ecclesia will be built. And listen at this dual role that we have. We are called to be a part of the church, but also to help in partnership with him build the church. He builds it through us. And let me tell you something. If in this revelation we have undebated fact that Jesus is the foundation and that he is building it, we are a part of the building and we are being used to work on the building, I have no doubt in my mind that this foundation is sure. I have no doubt in my mind that the one who's building the church is capable, even with disruptions like COVID-19, even with other disruptions that we've experienced in the past, that whatever the disruption, that this man, Jesus the Christ, the anointed one, is able to sustain us in the midst of this COVID-19. I don't know about you, but my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on his name. Say it with me. On Christ, the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. I don't know how you feel about it, but I can shout right there. Because if I was standing on the word of men, I'd be sinking right now. But I'm standing on the solid rock, the word of God, and so I'm standing on solid ground. If I was standing on financial principles, if I was standing on money, I'd be shaking and slipping and drowning right now because money is falling like I don't know what. But let me tell you something, because we are standing on the rock.
Thanks for watching. Be blessed and continue walking in the light.